Hi.
Hello,
How are
nice to meet
you?
you.
All right. Hi, everyone. Sorry for the delay, just a little glitch. And we are here now, right? And welcome to another session of the Tech Talk with Tech Jobs Fair. I am Tripti Sinha from Tech Jobs Fair, and I'll be your host for this particular session. And today we have our very special guest, Mr. Dan Sodergren. And hi, Dan. Welcome to the session. How are
Thanks,
you?
thanks very much. Thanks very much. Yeah, apologies to everyone who tuned in slightly earlier with the tech glitch. That was nothing to do with AI. There you go. That's the best way to look at that.
All right. So, guys, let me just give you a little brief about Dan. He is a keynote speaker, a TEDx talker, author, and a corporate trainer on AI, technology, and future of work. He is a much sought after expert guest on TV stations, radio shows, and podcasts. And now he has 6 books to his name. And congrats on that, Dan. That's a really good journey. Like 6 books, yes. And latest being The Intelligence, which is the fifth industrial revolution. And also, that will be our topic of the session today, intelligence, which is the fifth industrial revolution, and how we can use AI in the future of work, right?
Yeah.
So, over to you, Dan. You can give a little brief about yourself and tell us about your little journey in the industry and about yourself.
Fantastic. Well, I think to be fair, you just did amazing job. You're almost my PR person there. That's a great job that you've done there. Yeah, I do have the joy of talking a lot about this stuff. I've been talking about digital transformation most probably for more than 15 years. So it's kind of a bit of a weird prophet in the wilderness. Before then, I was helping people start their own businesses. I've started about 9 or 10 of my own. 5 of those being tech companies, and some of those being tech companies way before other people in the industry were doing stuff. So I had an augmented reality company about 15 years ago, or 14 years ago. But anyway, it's not the point. Point being is, way before people were doing augmented reality stuff a lot, we were doing it, which of course is why I'm now known as a tech futurist and get asked on the BBC and radio to talk about the future and the future of work. Now, I would much rather not be called a tech futurist. I'd much rather be called very, very rich. I'd rather be called billionaire Dan Sodergren rather than tech futurist. So I always joke with my families and friends that no, I can't guess the numbers of the lottery or gambling. You know, it's not kind of that kind of future that I'm into. But I do tend to be able to predict what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, which I always find and other people find interesting, which of course is why corporates ask me to come along, and large organizations and small ones too ask me to go along and inspire their people doing keynotes, especially around the future of work. And now, even though I've been talking about it for about 10 years, especially artificial intelligence, after everything that happened last year, it's now become very, very fashionable, and rightly so. So hopefully that gives you a bit of background. I'd say been public speaking for most probably over 20 years. I've been doing stuff in digital marketing for longer, but future of work, digital transformation, that's what I do as a job. Yeah.
So, I just one question: what built that interest in you about the future of work, the AI? How did it click? To do things in this particular field.
God, between me and you and everyone else listening, of course, it was just complete luck. And I have to, a lot of people who have been successful in things don't attribute it to luck, but I do very much so, right? Because it was by luck that I was adopted into a family that was in a village, small village in Nottinghamshire. It's complete luck that one of my best friends at my first school was a chap called Tom Old. Because Tom Old was insanely clever. He was actually right-hand man to Stephen Hawkins, which you'll all know, and you must really know of him being a fantastic theoretical physicist, etc. Right? So Tom went to Cambridge and did all this amazing, clever stuff. At the same time, Tom got to become best friends with a chap called Demis. Now, those of you who are AI geeky people will know that Demis then sold his AI stuff. It's now Google DeepMind, right? So Google, so Demis had this idea about artificial intelligence and gaming and all this other stuff. I know maybe 15 years ago. And I've been very lucky to know Demis for about 20 years. So it's only by a few conversations that I had with him that truly each one of them changed my life and the way I viewed the world. So each time I've talked to very clever people and I've been able to predict the future based on some of those conversations, but also that's what ignited my passion in technology. Because when you talk to clever people who are building the stuff and they're telling you what's coming, you know how exciting this next stage of life could be. And I've literally been hoping, and I know it sounds ridiculous, but hoping not to die before all this stuff happens, because it's going to be an amazing world in which we live. It literally is going to be a paradigm shift, which is what the Fifth Industrial Revolution book is all about. But it's just pure luck that I've got to know people. And I suppose I have an innate curiosity about the world, and I have an innate optimism about technology. And so I've always been interested in it. I started off being fascinated by gaming, and then that kind of moved a little bit into social media. And so often when people say to me, it's a fad, like I was told that computer games would be a fad and they'd never be big, because I'm that old, right? We start off with the ZX Spectrum. I'm that old. I'm very, very, very old. So the reason why I've managed to do so much stuff is because I'm so very old. It's no trick. It's just being on the planet for longer. It's my clever trick that I've done. Especially if a lot of your people, listeners are, under 30 or under 20, I'm ancient, right? So because I'm so old, and because I've been able to listen to lots of folk and read lots of books and have lots of time on the planet, I kind of followed my passion, and my passion was around gaming. And that, you'll know, of course, in the world of tech, that gaming kind of gave birth to artificial intelligence almost by accident. And so it comes from that. And then my love of things like social media and data and data-driven decisions, all that kind of sits around machine learning, and then AI again. So as I say, it's just a Venn diagram of my own interests that all circled around the proposition of what will the future of work be like. And this was before COVID hit. And then, of course, coronavirus hit, and it changed the world again. And it sped everything up. Yeah. So COVID made sure that we had, 10 years worth of digital transformation in a year, which changed the world. Yeah, that changed the world. So I've just been very lucky with a lot of the companies I've either started or tried to start, or some of my interests. They just are very fashionable now. Believe you me, they weren't very fashionable 10 years ago. People thought I was crazy.
But now, they'll just, think that you were way ahead of time.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. There could be 1,000 crazy people like me, and I'm just lucky enough that this universe has panned out in the way that it made me look good.
Yeah. So it's mentioned, intelligence is like the fifth revolution, industrial revolution, right? So I just want you to I want to ask that, how does intelligence relate to the first four industrial revolutions, and how does it set the stage for being the potential fifth industrial revolution?
Good Lord, that's a great question. That's a big one, and that's going to test my knowledge of the other revolutions. That's very good. I like what you've done there. Yeah. So what's the idea of your book, Dan? Okay, what are the other four revolutions, clever clogs? What have you got? Okay, cool. So how does intelligence shape it? Well, if you look at them, you could most probably say the first one was around steam. Yeah, we're talking about 100 years ago, right? So the first industrial revolution around steam. The second one's most probably around electricity. You could most probably say the third one is more about automation of that electricity, manufacturing automations of these things. And then the fourth one's really around networks and the start of that kind of computerization of the world, right? Now, each one of these takes a different type of intelligence. The ability and understanding around engineering allows us to have the steam revolution. Yeah, but if you didn't understand steam and iron and other things, it wouldn't have happened, right? And then the second one, and then you could even argue the third one, the second one's electricity, so it's engineering based. It's a very physical thing that you couldn't say didn't exist, right? The third one actually is more to do with intelligence, because it's a way of thinking, it's automation and a process that changes things, which is very much a human aspect. You have to understand that's a human intelligence that would allow us to do that. It wasn't just technology. The fourth one, again, is a mixture of the two. So you have to have human intelligence to start using computers and to start to understand why computing is important. Yeah, and then be able to link them all together in networks takes a human understanding, but it also takes a technological understanding. And that fifth one we're talking about now, and this is where I think it's kind of gone up and up and up. Each one of these has needed more intelligence, right? The first, second, third, fourth, all needed more intelligence. The fifth one itself is intelligence, because this one really is about human beings. You might think, because I'm a technologist and a tech futurist, I'm going to talk about technology. Bizarrely enough, I'm not. It's actually about human beings. It's the human being and their ability to manipulate the world and concepts around that allows us to take advantage of artificial intelligence. Yeah, but without, I'll give you the four that the book's based on. So it's artificial intelligence, emotional intelligence, independent intelligence, and then organizational intelligence, right? Without those four underpinnings, we're not going to be able to take advantage of the fifth industrial revolution as much, because without intelligence, we're going to just believe that this moment isn't important. We're not going to see the paradigm shift. We're not going to understand the importance of data. We're not going to understand the importance of organizational structure. We're not going to see the importance of a changing employee contract and why remote work and hybrid work is so, so transformational, but also massively important. And then one of the big ones is within artificial intelligence is great, but without the emotional intelligence to get the most out of artificial intelligence, you're going to be left behind again. So it purely is around intelligence itself, and it's not about technological advancements, even though AI is a massive one. It's actually about how do we as human beings use our intelligence. We've got to remember, we are the most intelligent species on the planet. But if we don't start using our intelligence more, A, the planet isn't going to exist, but B, we're not going to take advantage of this next jump in productivity. If you don't have a growth mindset and you're not willing to change, this revolution will be the one where you fail. And you've got to remember, but 95% of us used to work in fields. Yeah, literally within a few hundred years that's all changed. This next jump will happen in a few years. It won't take a few hundred years. It will take a few years. As I always say, and people think it's cliche, and I get told off by, especially by AI specialists, but I think it's true. AI is not going to replace you at the moment, but somebody using AI most probably will. Now, that's no difference in any revolution. The person who uses the technology more than the other person will win that revolution. And this is the same with all of them.
Right. So now we're all talking about intelligence and AI being the mind of the people right now, right? And how it's growing fast. Can you share some key insights on where AI fits into the future of work? And it's also mentioned in your book. So can you discuss a little more on that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, hopefully not for too long, because we don't have forever, but I certainly could. I can talk. I literally talk about it for days. I talk about it in keynotes for hours. So it's one of my favorite things to talk about. But I'll try to make it a bit more succinct for your answer. AI, you've got to remember, AI is simply it's just computer power, right? So it's a little bit like which jobs and which industries will computers affect? And most of us know that most jobs in the world right now, especially in the knowledge sector, of course, especially computers, especially in coding, right, use computers. Yeah. So the idea that AI won't affect most jobs is pretty, it's an interesting one. A lot of people saying, well, AI won't affect people in bars because you're never going to get an AI bartender. Well, that's true, but there aren't, hospitality isn't as big as people think. I mean, it's a good driver, but it can't drive the economy, right? Or maybe it can in certain countries, that's fine. But again, the belief that managers won't use AI to think about how their staff are allocated, or they won't use AI to see how happy their customers are, is simply to misunderstand what hospitality is. Hospitality is a series of data points. And the better you get at those data points, the happier your customers, the happier your staff, the happier the profit margins, right? In hospitality, pretty much. In fact, lots of people would argue the happier your staff, the happier the customers, therefore the happier the business. It's that way around. Staff first, but that's a different conversation. But that's why HR, that's why kind of AI and HR is a big one. I did a keynote for Personio and some other folk around that, because it's a big area, because it means that we're no longer making knee-jerk reactions to things. We're making data-driven decisions by a machine. Anyway, HR, that's one area. But there's much more massive areas, like in health tech. It's already revolutionizing health tech. Yeah, in health, it's huge changes. And if, doctors are already seeing this, but other people are seeing it too. So actually, each sector will be affected by AI. It's just a matter of when. Yeah, so health tech's already being affected. Yeah, health tech's already being affected. Let's say, computer coding and software development. Yeah, that's already being affected, but it might take 2 more years for AI to get so good that it makes a massive difference, right? In marketing, I do something called the AI marketing course. In marketing, it's massively affected by AI already. It's already happening. This took a few months, and this thing is now up to speed, right? And then you look at something like education. Education takes a long time to change, but AI will massively change education. Now, this is exactly why I've launched something with a partner of mine called AI Teacher Course, which is to basically help teachers teach with AI, but also to see this revolution coming. So there isn't really going to be a spot. I mean, I did work last year for the agricultural people in the UK, and agriculture is ripe for AI disruption, but it's not disruption. It's how do you become more productive as a farmer with the data you get back from the machines, and how, if the machine makes the decisions, are they better decisions? And they tend to be better decisions because they have the data, right? So soil sensors, everything, like there isn't going to be an industry which, mining's a massive one that's affected. There is not going to be an industry that will not be affected by AI. It's just a matter of when.
Right. It's just a matter of when, like you said. So, like based on your understanding and projections, right? Do you think like what roles do you feel AI will play in future industries? Like how is it going to affect, or how is it going to, you know, involve itself in the future industries?
Wow, again, that's a massive question. That's like asking a priest, what is the view of God, and what do you think about the Bible? That's a big one. Okay, that's a biggie. Okay, that's big. But again, great question. Just a huge one, right? Okay, so that's kind of the subject for the book. So the Fifth Industrial Revolution, which is coming out next year, January 2024. That's kind of what the book's also talking about. But it's actually talking about some of the underlying thinking behind this as well. Okay, which is most probably, I mean, I'm not going to say it's a deeper point, because your point's a really good one, which is, granularly, which jobs are going to go first. If I've got your question correctly, which ones are the most in danger? Or maybe not even I wouldn't even call it in danger. AI is going to change everybody's jobs and roles and all sorts of stuff. Yeah. So, but I'll give you some examples of ones that I think are more likely to change first. Okay. So one which surprises people is customer service. Okay. Customer service, customer support. You can do obvious ones. I was talking to a friend of mine a couple of days ago. They do podcasts and things, and they were like, we don't need someone to transcribe stuff anymore, because we'll just use Descript, or we'll just use whatever. Yeah. And then myself with my own company, do I need a video editor anymore? Not as much, because I just use something else. I use Opus or Opus Clips, right? And that does a very good job of it. Now, that means that job that they were doing before is slightly being eroded. It's a little bit like, I don't know, it's a bit like if you were a baker, and then all of a sudden people started manufacturing bread next to you. Like, most of your job will disappear, right? Because the manufacturer of bread, you're not going to spend $20 on a loaf of bread, because you can buy one for $2, right? But this is the same, and I still don't understand how people don't think it affects them in their future, when they misunderstand that it's the same. What AI is doing is manufacturing knowledge and human capacity in that respect. It's the same as manufacturing bread. The stuff you do can now be manufactured at 1/10 of the price. Now, I'm not a massive fan of capitalism for a lot of different reasons, but the reality is that's the market. The market will say, I'm not going to pay for a developer or for whoever it is, if I can get the same stuff done somewhere else. Does that destroy, I'll keep with the analogy, does that destroy bakers? Well, it does destroy a lot of bakers, but it pushes bakery into a different world, doesn't it? So suddenly you're making bread, you're most probably making sourdough bread, and you're most probably charging £5 for it. You become a specialist, because this is how it works, right? Now, it could be that, there's no point in me saying there's no such thing as bakery anymore. Well, that's nonsense. Of course there is, right? People make patisseries and fancy little pastries and all this yummy stuff that people make. But it better be yummy, and it better be expensive, and it better be good, because if you're just making loads of bread, sliced bread, you're out the game, right? Because they're too cheap, right? There's the whole thing. Right? And again, you could use that analogy pretty much with all these things. But to answer your question, the ones that will go first are things like customer service, customer support. Some of sales will start going way before people think. Marketing will disappear as I know it. I mean, this is exactly why I started the AI marketing course, but it's also why I moved out of marketing and invested in your flock, which is around HR and employee engagement, because the people I knew basically said 7 years ago, said, Dan, you've got about 10 more years in marketing, then it won't exist. AI is going to do it. And I was like, And even they, by the way, got the numbers wrong, because they got the reason why they got the numbers wrong is because OpenAI did what they promised they wouldn't do and gave it away free to everyone, so they got the numbers wrong. Now everyone's playing this AI race to catch up, and even Google Gemini just came out last week. Everyone's trying to do stuff for free to try to get to the top, and that of course means that there's a load of innovation in the market, and AI is moving at a race of pace that's never GPT-3, I think 3.5 or 3.5 came out. It was the quickest thing to get to 100 million users. The telephone took 72 years to get to 100 million users, and GPT 3.5 took 72 days. This is the quickness of adoption. Exactly, this is the quickness of adoption. But the telephone didn't get better the more people used it, whereas AI gets better the more people use it, right? So a lot of things that you would think would be sacrosanct, there'd be no way that it could do it. Things like being a doctor, diagnosing cancer, diagnosing breast cancers, it does it better than a normal doctor does. Yeah, things like law, it now does. When I say it's a bit of a misnomer. There are, of course, 5 or 6 different ways of doing AI, but for now, let's just call it AI. AI does those things better. Yeah, but it's not a better doctor, but it diagnoses better. Yeah, it's quicker at diagnosis, which it should be. It's a computer. It should be better. It's saying it's quicker at maths than human beings are. Well, of course it is. It's a computer. It's going to be quicker at maths. Right? But what the other things it can start doing, which is the bit that's really surprising, is things like psychology and things like creativity, the stuff which we thought was innately human. Things like making music. It can, it's starting to make music and make make adverts and build films. You look at the stuff that's done by Pika Labs and all these other things, creating of imagery. We didn't think before that it could create such amazing imagery. There are now something like, and it's no word of a lie, there are more images that have been created by generative AI that it took 150 years for the world of photography to do. That's how quickly we've made them, but we made them in a year. And this stuff wasn't meant to be possible for AI to do, right? So if you're in video editing or even video production or creativity or in marketing or in all these things, AI is in a position now to help you with your job, very much so, but also start to replace parts of your job. Luckily for us, it might be parts of the job that we didn't like anyway. And so actually it's better for human beings, right? But I hate to say it, even in the world of coding, code interpreter and these other things that are out there, it helps you with coding. This is why Microsoft put all that money into it, and that's why it's linked to GitHub. Right now, if you are a software developer or if you're a coder and you're not using AI, then I think you will find yourself in a very interesting position in the next few years. So I think, in fact, in the next 6 months, because the person who's going to employ you is going to ask you the question, which is how you're using AI. That's going to become a standard question. And very, very soon, it won't be how are you using AI. It'll be which AI are you using? Yeah. Seriously. And then it'll be what prompts are you using in your AI to make the AI do what it does? How are you doing? Yeah. And those questions weren't around 3 years ago. They weren't around a year ago. But if you're hiring someone right now, even if they're an amazing software developer and they're saying, oh, I don't like using AI because I think it's rubbish, that's most probably a closed mindset rather than the truth. Because everybody, I know a lot of coders, and I'm not saying it's going to replace coding at all, because it isn't. It's not that good. But it's very good at finding stuff out and finding out bugs and checking stuff. Now, it might only do it to a B grade level, but it still does it to a B grade level. And actually, I know a few people who are doing some very cool stuff with their own versions of coding, with their own proprietary data, which makes the stuff that's out there at the moment a lot better. So that's going to be the future. So yeah, to answer your question, some of the ones that were pretty obvious would be as a health tech, doctors, into lawyers, into teaching, customer service, into marketing. But yeah, do not underestimate the power of AI potentially in the sector, especially around tech. And then if you look at things like data science, I mean, if I was a data scientist and I've spent 7 years learning my craft, and then Google, bring out, I'm no anyone who's a data scientist, but Google bring out something that literally can do most of my job.
Right.
I'd want to start using that thing. It's a bit like, you've learned being an accountant, and then they bring out Excel. Well, that's good because accountants now use Excel, right? It didn't get rid of accountancy; it just made accountants more productive. Well, that's where we are with code at the moment.
Yeah, so it's definitely growing faster than cancer.
it's growing so fast. But I like about it's growing so fast that even the AI experts, so to speak, can't stay on top of it. So I always, anyone says they're an AI expert, unless you are building your own LLM, I question you are. We're all just enthusiasts, just watching the race of these mighty giants. The outcome, of course, for us is great because it means our productivity can go up. In some industries, it's 40%. In some industries, it's as high as 400%. And if you can be, 4 times more productive, then that changes everything about your life. If you can work remotely or hybridly for somebody, and you can become more productive and have, if we're all paid on outcomes, and this is part of the book, because this is the next bit, isn't it? It's like, what happens now? What happens next when AI takes over and does all this clever stuff for us? What are we as human beings going to do?
So I just want to add a little thing here. Like you mentioned, like if people are hiring, in the upcoming years, the first question initially, a few years back or even right now, it's tell me about yourself as like first question that comes up, right, during an interview. So in the coming years, I think it's surely going to be which AI do you use, or are you familiar with AI? Not even like telling maybe the AI, the software you use will define yourself. So I think that will be the scenario in the upcoming years.
Now that is fascinating. Like how we used to think about someone by what laptop they would carry around. And we'd be able to see like that's a coder. That's not a real coder. That's a graphic designer.
Exactly.
I can see that.
The software will find you.
Now it's going to be. Well, the problem is, isn't it interesting though? Because now it'll be invisible. Because you won't be able to say, oh, right, okay, but the question will be, what AI operating system are you using? Yeah, absolutely. But actually, between me and you, the future of work is going to be this weird tech stack where actually it's a mixture of different things that creates this kind of magic sauce, which becomes you. It's not going to be as obvious as, oh, right, they've got one of those laptops, therefore they're a coder, or, oh, quick, they open terminal first. That means they must be really good. It's not going to be that easy because behind the scenes, will be because we can all with AI we can all now have our own intern, right? So we can all now be the boss of something, this little clever bit, right? Now, if we're really clever in the future work, and I hope we will be, this is what we talk about in the book, is about independent intelligence, right? We'd realize this huge opportunity of having our own interns. And if you were really clever, you wouldn't just have one, you'd have 3 or 4. And if you can have 3 or 4 interns that work for you, that costs almost nothing, your productivity soars. And so your value to a company is almost exponential, right? Now you think about that with other things like radical flexibility, like people hiring people who are no longer in that 3-mile or 10-mile or 30-mile radius. This is the future of work, of course. This is remote work. This is, by the way, why I talk about remote work so much, because I believe it will change the world. It will lift people out of poverty, and I truly believe it changes the world. Now, you might get a backlash in certain countries where they say, no, we don't want radical flexibility. We want to be able to see you. We want you to come into the office, right? Those companies, I think, will fall behind, because what they're missing is, with radical flexibility comes hyper productivity.
Yeah.
And add to that mix artificial intelligence and emotional intelligence, and you have an amazing employee. Yeah. You might not be able to keep them for very long. They might start their own business. Who knows? Who knows what they'll do? But you're in a world where you've got great people. And of course, great people make great companies. And I said about 7 or 8 years ago, I said, the future, my sentence was something along the lines of, and I hate to quote myself, but it's something along the lines of, with the right people and the right technology, you take over the world. But without those people and without that technology, that world takes over you. And that was my little glib quote on the thing. That's become more true than ever. So I don't think we're ever going to get into this bit where a company is just one person and everything else is AI, but we might. But we will definitely get into the place where it's one person and there's loads of people working remotely and hybridly, and they're all using AI to become better at their jobs.
Definitely. So like you have had this wonderful journey, being in the marketing field, and now writing your own books, talking about future of work, and your journey has been amazing, right? So your journey as a keynote speaker and maybe kind of influencer, your perspectives and insight shares in intelligence, right? So how quickly do you think these revolutions take place, right? Like from first to second to third, fourth, and now you're on fifth, right? So how quickly that does this revolution occur, like according to your understanding and your experience in your journey?
Thank you. Okay, according to my journey, we're in the fifth already. Not everyone believes that, so that's just me being a bit crazy. But I think it's just a good way of thinking. To think of the paradigm shift puts you into a different state of mind. If you're still thinking we're in the world of the fourth revolution, which is around computers and data and networking, then we really have missed the meeting, right? Now, and I suppose it depends on different things. Education might still be in the fourth revolution, but it needs to get into the fifth. And as individuals, we need to get into the fifth. And I'd love to be able to say that you could see a pattern in this, because I love data and I love patterns, right? So I'm always searching for a good pattern so you can do predictive analysis. There isn't one when it comes to these things. It would be lovely that the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and they just got quicker. That's not necessarily. It's normally around 90 years. So you could call this one instead not the fifth industrial revolution, but 4.5, because that's kind of where it should be. It should be about 4.5.
Okay.
But I suppose that's my point. This is the same with lots of things, isn't it? You hit the inflection point, and the inflection point then gets logarithmic. Right? And I think that's where we've gone now. And this is why a good friend of mine, Tom Cheesewright, he says in his book, High Frequency Change, he talks about this is the slowest that it's ever going to go. Yeah, and it's mind blowing to think that, but it's true. But it's also this today is we are one day nearer to AGI than we'll ever be. Yeah, the artificial intelligence will never get worse; it will only get better.
Yeah.
Now, I'm talking that as a sector, as a thing. Just like technology just gets better, right? Just like phones get more powerful, computers become more powerful. This used to be a law, of course, and you'll all know the law because you're all clever folk. And that used to be the law. But of course, now it's broken. That law is now broken because it used to be like I always say this in all my keynotes. I'd say that it was true a couple of years ago that 90% of the world's data was created in the last 2 years. But that was true. It was true. I don't know if it's true now, but it was true about 5 or 6 years ago. But it wouldn't surprise me if it's true now as well, because you've got AI. So that continual growth of data is, when you really think about it, it's almost insane. It's incalculable. It's insane what's happening. But that if AI feeds on data, which it does, it means that AI only gets quicker. Yeah. So the fifth revolution makes sense to be now because we're about to take a massive jump ahead. It is a paradigm shift. If we can get enough people on board with it, then it will be I'm hoping a kind of bloodless revolution. It'll be a happy revolution where people become happier at work, more productive, we make more money, we save the planet. Awesome. That's what we want to do. Yeah, AI is much more likely to be able to solve the planet's problems than we are, because without being rude about it, we created the problems. So we're not likely. It's like Albert Einstein says, the way of thinking that created the problem isn't going to be the way of thinking that will get you out of the problem. So we have to think differently. And it might be that computers are actually a bit cleverer and more rational than we are. Yeah. And a lot of people hate it. A lot of people hate that idea and say, no, that's almost blasphemous. We are the best things on the planet and we are amazing. I get it. But you can't beat a supercomputer. Because no one can beat a supercomputer, right? Because you can't on certain things. On other things like falling in love and these other things, yeah, fair enough. But this is an interesting one, which again kind of causes a little bit of controversy, but it's proving to be true. These LLMs, because of the data they're trained on, are not becoming more human-like, because everyone starts talking about being sentient and everyone gets a bit scared and we all think about Terminator and all this stuff. It's not about that. It's about the fact that they they imitate human beings, right? To the extent, and this has only just been found out, so here's a brand new one for you, Okay. With AI, it depends what kind of prompt, what kind of AI you're using, true. But if you're using what takes prompts, it depends on the prompt you're using at this moment in time for the outcome you get, right? Because that's just life. But what they're finding is that it's emotionally dependent on the prompt you use and how well the machine works. Okay. So there's some really weird ones, like if you're nice to it, then it does better results for you. So always say please and thank you. Yeah. Also, by the way, say please and thank you in case the computers do take over the world, because they'll know where you live and they'll know. So you'll be spared. You'll be spared if the computers take over if you're nice to them now, right? The other thing is weird ones like if you say to the machine, take a deep breath and then let's start working together, it does it better. Yeah, just the idea of taking a deep breath, it does it better, right? Another one that it does, and this is, they only just found this out today, it could be that GPT-4 is starting to not be as good in December. And I stumble with my words because I still find this just unbelievable, but the data is showing this. It's because it's learned the behavior that in December we do less work, right? As human beings, we do less work in December.
New Year.
Yeah, exactly, Christmas and New Year, right? But this means, but the machine is now refusing to do as much work. What? You know, it's learned that behavior, so it literally is going,
adapting that nature, human nature.
You know what I mean? But how is that? Because of course it's got like 100 years or whatever many years of all this data behind it, and it's just going, well, it's logical that I don't really work a lot over Christmas and New Year, but it's a machine. It shouldn't be able to think that.
Exactly.
It's wonderful. Yeah. So if you're wondering why your code interpreter is not working as well, it's because it's getting near Christmas.
Holiday seasons here, so we'll just be right back. Not working.
Yeah, literally, it's basically, but it shouldn't do that, should it? But of course, there was no when people first built all this stuff, there was just to get all the data we can and put it in, But there wasn't a thought that nuance would be created through the data. But of course it would do, because it's the human experience, right? So if you're nice to your AI, it works harder for you, just like a human being would.
Exactly.
This is even weirder. If you pretend, because of course there's no money involved, if you say to your AI that you're going to tip it, $200 they've worked out is the key figure to use. I don't know why it's $200, but there we go. But if you say on successful completion of this task, I will tip you $200, it does it better. How weird is that? How weird is that? Weird. AIs are weird, but of course, it doesn't mean that it's sentient or that it wants to tip. It just knows that that's what human beings do to good workers. They get tips, and so therefore it ascertains that it should get a tip, and therefore will work harder for you if you give it a tip. How weird is that? Anyway, that's an aside. Sorry.
That's completely fine. So it seems like this AI and then the smart working idea will for sure grow the productivity in people, because like you said, remote working will be there, and happy employees will bring more productivity to the company, right? So, and because the smart working is coming in place, so probably they'll be more excited to do and find out how to do new things in what ways, and so many softwares coming to them, they'll probably be curious, using all of it and understanding the process of how all these software works. So yeah, I see the productivity of people working, because with the help of AI will surely grow in the coming future, and AI is going to play a huge role in the future of work, definitely.
Well, but as I say, there's this whole point is if it was just artificial intelligence alone, then it wouldn't be this fifth industrial revolution. Yeah, the true bit, of course, is intelligence. It's without using emotional intelligence to drive the artificial intelligence, you don't get the most out of it, right? Without being independent with your intelligence in the way that you think, like if you're waiting continually for your boss to tell you what to do, then I think it's a problem. Now, a lot of people, again, aren't realizing that they can use their artificial intelligence with emotional intelligence to become their boss and to mentor them. So a lot of people are still asking, I'd love to have a mentor. You can build your own, right? Like exactly. Actually, I have a business advisor who is a very famous person who I could not afford to ever give me advice, because they're very famous. And I've just taken all their books and their YouTube stuff, all the things that are freely available. and put it into the AI, into a GPT, and I ask it every day, what would this person advise? What would they think I should do? Now, what's fascinating is, if you think about it, that's the same as me just reading all their books and learning what they do and then being clever enough to remember it all. But the machine doesn't have to worry about remembering it all because it's a machine. So it definitely knows it all, right? So I would find it fascinating. And one day I'll be rich enough to do it. I will be able to phone up this individual and say, so-and-so, what would you do at this moment? And I just want to see if the machine says the same thing. Because it would be really interesting to see how, because of course I have no data feedback loop. I don't know if it's true or not. It could be hallucination. But the point I suppose I was getting to for listeners is that a lot of people are using AI or thinking they should use AI, but they're not doing it in a very personal way. Like, AI gives you the ability to create your own business coach, to create your own mentor, to create your own coding coach, get your own. People are literally asking me, how do I get a job? The best thing to do is to take 10 books about getting a job and writing a CV and all these other things, put it into an AI machine, which you can almost do for $20 a month. It's insanely low, this price, and sometimes completely for free. Yeah, put a book about how do you get a job into into Claude for free, and ask Claude questions for a day, because it's the same as asking the person who wrote the book. Yeah, but the AI will come up with better questions. Now, this totally disrupts the business of business advice, or CV writing, or LinkedIn, or anything, because the knowledge is already out there. Yeah, but I'm not saying build a bot that you sell, and this is the bit which people aren't doing. I'm saying build a bot that makes your life better. Build your own business advisor, build your own coach, build your own resume writer, build your own anything, because you can. And if you've got the ability, by the way, this is someone who works in marketing and does talks for a living. I can build these things. If you know about coding and things like Zapier and things like CRMs, or things like SQL databases, all the clever stuff that people know about, you could make breathtaking things now. Now, my point is, you might say, well, why would I do that? Well, this is the point about independent thinking and kind of entrepreneurial thinking. Because when you're going for a job, that person might say to you, hey, cool, what have you built lately? And you might say, oh, I built such and such with the company. And they're like, no, what have you done? That was a hobby that you created. And when you can show, just like in marketing, I don't employ people who work in marketing if they don't do marketing for themselves. If they don't have a good personal brand and they don't do marketing, they don't write blogs, they're not passionate about stuff, I'm not going to employ them, because I can get that from anything. I can get that from anywhere, right?
Right.
But what I really, especially in the same principle with coding or with anyone working in tech, is what is your passion project that you're doing? What's the hobby that you're doing? What's the thing that gets you out of bed but you really love doing? Because you want that. I talk about this in my TEDx talk. The future of work isn't what you think, it's not what you feel, but it's what you love. And as human beings, we've got to get back to that thing that we love more and more. So if you're lucky enough, and it might sound a bit weird to say if you're lucky enough not to have a job, but if you are lucky enough to not have a job at the moment, start tapping into your passions and what you love doing more than what you had to do for a job, because that's the bit that people will pay money for. Now, the last bit with the book, artificial intelligence, of course, emotional, we've talked about intelligence and independent intelligence. The last one's organizational intelligence, right? This organizational intelligence is hugely important, because these are the people that are hiring folk. Okay. So your HR, your recruiters, these kind of bits of understanding, the leadership, all this will change in the fifth industrial revolution. And I honestly predict we're going to have a lot more smaller businesses. We're going to have a lot less massive companies. And if you look at the moment, we're most probably in almost one of the most aggressive job markets in this, that's ever really existed. And people get a bit cross with me when I tell this truth, but it's very hard to get a job at the moment. It seems to be anyway. More and more people are telling me it's more and more hard to get a job, especially where it is. So if you're in you're going for entry-level jobs in tech, that's going to be really hard. And the reason being, you're going up against 3 different things or 4 different things. Obviously, one, economic headwind. You're going up again where people are downsizing, right? And we can't do very much more than we did before. So in tech, in the West, we started to offshore things. Yeah. Well, that means that offshoring bit's already been done. That bit's already been done. Plus, you're going to be going up against someone potentially who can be cheaper than you are, because we now have more people on the internet with laptops and computers than ever before, which is a great thing, by the way, because that lifts people out of poverty. So it's an amazing thing for the globe. Yeah. But if you're if you're in Sweden and you're trying to get a job and there's somebody else who'll do it for a quarter of the price, but to be just as good, well, then you're going to be in problems, right? Plus, not only is that kind of doing it in different parts of the globe, which I truly believe we should, there's people using AI to become 4 times more productive. So you're not only going up against somebody who might be cheaper, but you're also going up against someone who might be quicker because they're more productive. And then the fourth one is you might be going up against AI itself, because your job role might now be possible with AI. Like, I don't have a graphic designer anymore, but that's because Canva exists and DALL-E exists. And so I don't really use graphic designers anymore. I used to use 5 people off Fiverr to do my graphic design. I don't anymore, but I do still use one of them, the very best one I've kept, because that stuff can't be done with AI. Now, I'm not saying this is the same for the people on the show, listening on the show. I'm not saying this is the same in tech and in software, but there's no place anymore, sadly, for mediocre or middle of the ground abilities, because they're being eroded. But that's okay, because AI helps people who aren't great become greater. Okay, so this is the clutch, this is the thing. But it helps about 99% of us. But you know that top 1%, the amazing coders, the amazing creatives, the amazing thinkers, the amazing people like this, AI doesn't help them become better, because it's not there yet. It doesn't help them become better. In fact, if anything, it makes them become worse. It actually makes them become worse, because it downgrades their creativity and their abilities. But here's the spooky thing. To be really good at something, when AI creates something which is a B grade, you've got to be at least a B grade to understand that it's a B grade, if that makes sense. So AI cannot replace people who are good at their job already. Exactly. It can just make them greater. But sadly, it will replace people who are bad at their job. That's who it will replace. And a load of people in the world, and I'm not being rude when I say this, that don't really like their job and aren't very good at it and just want to be employed. And I get it. But that bit of the world, it's a bit like, it's the same thing, just being, working in the fields, but not doing very much work. When the tractor came along, unless you learn how to drive a tractor, you're going to be out of a job. And between me and you, I think this is where governments have to now start stepping in and start being a lot nicer to those people. And they can't just say, you all need jobs, because those jobs might not exist. So actually, there's a government responsibility, but let's not put it on governments, because let's have independent intelligence, and let's think about ourselves and how we get jobs, rather than say the government should pay to live no matter what. I think they should, but that's the thing. So as long as you've got an open mindset and you're in a position where you can start playing around with AI, my advice is to do so as quickly as possible, and not just, please do not. And this is really key. Don't just do the cheap stuff, because the cheap stuff is bad. Okay. So if you're using 3.5 and you're not using 4, and you're not paying that $20, I understand if you're not in a position to pay that, I get that. But if you're using 3.5 is like asking a 16-year-old what to do. Yeah. Do not make life decisions based on what 3.5 says. It's literally like asking a 16-year-old. A GPT-4 is like asking a 21-year-old. So it's a better thing to do. Claude, I think Claude's even cleverer, but don't get me started on benchmarking. But you could use Claude, and that's pretty clever too. So again, don't just use the big players out there, because obviously they're there for a reason, but especially when they're free. Remember, if you're not buying a product, you are the product. Okay. You're just helping AI become better. That's all you're doing. Yeah. Also, if you're doing it for a job or looking to do it for a job, don't use the free ones, because they're not protected. Okay. If you're starting to use code interpreter and all these other things, and people who are coders all know this, you put your stuff on GitHub, coders borrow it and do, but of course they do. That's the point of GitHub, right? Everyone nicks their code from code, but not nicks, sorry, appropriates and then changes, right? Same principle will be now with Microsoft, because Microsoft, of course, own GitHub, and of course they own OpenAI, or put £10 billion in, however you want to see it. That you're adding to a massive data pool that they're taking from, which is no bad thing. But do you remember that when it's free, you are paying at some point. You're paying with the data, right? Mm-hmm. Data is the new oil. So if you've got something which is brilliant, don't put it into 3.5. Don't put it on GitHub. Just don't let people nick your intellectual property just for the sake of it. Start using other that you can pay for, because you don't just have to use the top multinational companies.
Right. Indeed, this was such an informative session, but unfortunately, yeah, we have some time constraints and we have to bring this session to an end. But this was really, really helpful. Your insights have been really valuable, Dan. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your knowledge and so much about future of work. Probably viewers will also start thinking more to it, and then probably they'll also go ahead of time like you did. So
Well, I can, just because I know we've only got 1 minute left, I'll give you one more thing that computers can't do, right? So one of the things computers can't do is public speaking, because they're not clever enough yet, right? So this is the only thing I would say. If you want to start getting better at public speaking, and if you want to start thinking about how you do that, like especially if you're leading teams or looking to lead teams, or I think almost everyone who's in the tech community has to start getting better at this. This is the bit the machines can't do. Yeah. The other thing, the soft skills, is the thing the machines can't do. So a friend of mine said the other week on, it kind of blew up and went viral on a variety of different posts. And he's right. Being easy to work for is such a kind of underestimated skill. Okay. Being nice and being easy to work for and work with is your key selling point now in the future of work. Being able to collaborate as well as innovate will be key. It is not going to be just enough to be technically good at doing something, because the machine will do the technically good. You need to be able to learn how to work in groups. You've got to think about psychology. You've got to think about public speaking, confidence levels. All those things are how you're going to get a job in this next thing, the fifth industrial revolution. If they want to come and follow me, please do. Just Dan Sodergren, so that's D-A-N. You'll have it on the screen, of course, S-O-D-E-R-G-R-N. Come have a look at me on LinkedIn. I think there's a website called dansodergren.com they can look at. As you say, just writing the new book, which is the fifth industrial revolution.co.uk. Go and you can get the synopsis of the book from there for free. And then my two other ones are, because you're not going to be teachers, so don't worry about that one, but it's the AI marketing course if you want to start looking at marketing. And then anyone who's on the call, I think we said, didn't we? We'd give them 50% off the book. So if you want to buy the book, the public speaking book, and I'll give, what's the date today? It's the 12th of the 12th. My goodness, that's good. Okay, I'll give 12 copies of the book away for free, completely for free. So contact the Tech Jobs Fair, and the first 12 people to email them get the book completely free. Everyone else will get a 50% off code. You see, this proves I'm not an AI. This proves this conversation was real, because I've been nice at the end. You see, that's AI wouldn't have been nice.
all right, thank you so much and all the best for your book. Also, to all the viewers, a quick update: if you are from London or around the UK, you can come join us at Tech Jobs Fair London, which is happening on 14th of March 2024. For more details, you can go check out our website, that is techjobsfair.com, and get your free tickets now if you're a job seeker. So it's going to be awesome for you to come look for jobs and attend the event. So yeah, all the best for your book, Dan, and we're looking forward to it. Yes, and guys, also I think you heard him about the discounts and everything. So yeah, go on and just buy a book if you want to. Yeah, public speaking, that's more important. Thank you so much everyone for joining us today. Until next time, take care and have a great day. Thank you so much, Dan. Nice meeting you.
Take care. Love to talk to you. Bye bye.